You're listening to the Suave Lover podcast with your hosts, Benjamin Ritter and James Amaro. SuaveLover.com, advising gentlemen on the art of romance. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Science tells us that women are interested in one thing from men. What's the number one thing that women are interested in?
Just dick pics.
Dick pics, of course. You might think that because you're probably interested in how she looks. And so you might, if you are projecting what you find attractive onto the psyche of a woman, think that, well, if looks matter to me, looks must matter to her. And indeed, they do to some degree. No, but you may believe, okay, well, I'm hyper concerned about looks because as a guy, you're visually stimulated. So therefore, she must be.
It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to disabuse a client of is she's out of my league. She's too pretty. She's out of my league because she's too pretty. And never is she out of my league because she's too well educated. Never is she out of my league. Right? Although I've had a couple of guys that I've worked with who are like, I have no problem talking to any girl who's pretty or whatever. But then as soon as I find out she's a doctor or a lawyer, I just get all stymied and I don't know why. It's status anxiety. That's a very interesting phenomenon, but that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, I've noticed static anxiety myself. I've seen it in other people as well. Oh, she makes more money than me. I think in myself, it was more just a personality misalignment because let's say she was a lawyer. Her aggression wasn't really something that was attractive to me.
Okay.
Where I see in other men that if a woman makes more money than them, they don't feel like men, which is really strange.
That's weird, isn't it?
Right? I don't know when society told men they had to make more money than the women.
For about 5,000-6,000 years, it's been the provider role. So that's definitely changing. And the idea at work there is something called hypergamy. Hypergamy means that women marry up. And that is why you can have something like
up in status.
Up in status. That's right. That's why the prince can marry the beautiful maiden who happens to be a farmer's daughter, but never do you hear the story about the princess going and picking the sort of lowly axeman. There's no fairy tale that describes that circumstance.
Aladdin had to become a prince first.
Right. So that's right. So that is kind of the idea is hypergamy. So people have the status anxiety. But really, what often happens to guys is they assume, well, I'm interested in looks. Women must also be interested in looks. Or they're interested in a guy with a lot of money. I know players who don't look very good, they got a lot of money. Or they're interested in tall men. I wish that I were tall. So there's a lot of things that guys think women are interested in.
But then I notice when you have a guy with a ton of money, he feels that he can start buying women. Or maybe he feels more confident in himself. Or he gets more opportunity because women realize he has more money and approach him more. Sure. Instead of him actually going out there and reaching out and putting himself on the line for a woman that he feels is prettier than him. In some cases, if a guy has a lot of money, high status, that idea that he has to be a certain level of attractiveness for, like the same level of attractiveness or more than the woman that he's pursuing, sometimes goes out the window.
Sure.
But even if a guy has high status and a ton of money, I've had to disabuse those types of men with that idea that they don't look good enough for specific women too. A lot of times they try to make up for it by spending a lot of money on these women or trying to buy their attention. But it isn't your physical appearance that is going to really turn on a woman.
At all. I mean, if she's not going to be turned on by your appearance at all. It's not what is going to get her turned on. Now, undoubtedly, women are visual in that they have visual experiences. They see a hunky guy. There's no doubt that Magical Mike, the stripper, whatever movie, that got a bunch of girls hot and bothered. There's no doubt. But that is an extremely transient. That'll allow you another 3 seconds to step up and say something. But immediately you're being evaluated on much more than the look.
Physical attractiveness actually makes women more on guard.
Well, they expect more. You're a player. You pull a lot. Right. They expect a lot more. That's right.
They start evaluating you a lot harder.
Looking for flaws.
You become the guy that they want to fuck when they break up with their boyfriend on that one night and then never talk to again.
Yep. So the belief I think that a lot of guys come in with is, okay, this is what has to be there, and they all have to be there, and if I'm lacking in any department, I'm fucked. This is the thinking. I have to have a great physique. I have to be tall. I have to have amazing social status, meaning that a lot of people have to be under I have to be the boss of something or the owner of something. I have to have a lot of money as a result of that status so that I can go and spend it lavishly. I have to be young enough that I'm not uncomfortable with age, probably within 7 to 10 years of my prospective partners. And all of those things have to converge perfectly. And if I'm lacking in any department, she can tell, and I'm not worth it. And all this funny anxiety starts to kick in.
And if I have any of these traits or all of these traits, I have to show them off.
Oh, right.
And I still have to buy your attention. And I really have to portray this is the person that I am, and I drive this type of car, and I have this type of money, and I have this career, and I am this attractive by walking around with my shirt off all the time and posting profile photos of it.
Very few things are more sad than conspicuous displays, needy displays of sort of the few assets that you actually have.
Let's look at some examples. Britney Spears got with her dancer. Movie stars usually get with movie stars or actors that they're around a lot of times. A lot of relationships that you see or hookups or anything like that are due to proximity, due to certain social network similarities. And that's really the cusp of it. When you look at these kind of, this really beautiful woman's with this guy. Well, a lot of times it's just, the guy was in the right place at the right time. He had the right social status, and he probably built a relationship with this woman. It wasn't just kind of like a one-night fling.
The Essentials by Benjamin Ritter is your concise manual for life improvement and success with women. The Essentials has been called a straight-to-the-point lesson in the lost art of being a man. Packed with insights, this book will transform the way you think about dating and relationships. Get your copy of The Essentials by Benjamin Ritter at Amazon.com or in select bookstores today.
There's a psychologist who writes about online dating a lot, and he's also a professor, and he asks his students to rate their, dream match, their ideal match, on with 100 points, and they ask them to rate them on physical attractiveness, on fidelity, on social status, etc. These 4 different traits. And he finds that women, on average, throw the majority of their points into fidelity and trust.
Why would that be? What is fidelity and trust triggering subjectively in a woman's psyche? Feeling, comfort, it's emotional, it's openness, it's intimacy, exactly. Not all women are going to value fidelity in the same way. They are going to value a subjective emotional experience. Maybe it's the chance to be swept off of her feet. Why is that scene from Gone with the Wind still mentioned? Rhett Butler takes Scarlett up the stairs. I mean, that's still this sort of fan of feel, this tingle, this something. It feels like more than nothing.
And the reason why some men can't really understand this concept is because they put all their points into physical attractiveness.
Right. Because it makes them horny. Because they're feeling something too. Let's be clear. Yeah. When you see a pretty girl, you're feeling something. You're probably feeling it in your groin first, and it works its way up. But you are precisely evaluating the feeling. It's just that we get there differently.
And women, exactly. And women are feeling it from the mind down.
Yeah. Or the heart around, or something like. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why it's really hard to understand. So try to switch your way of thinking about this and really understand that inciting emotion in women is the most important thing. And if that's emotion from stimulating conversation and humor and banter and flirtation, or if it's from the fact that she thinks you're going to be a good caregiver and you're going to be loyal to her in the future and you're going to be a loving father, those things stimulate attraction.
Right. And remember, if she perceives you as the kind of guy who she would want to spend time with, possibly have a relationship with, because she sees you as a father type, the kind who could actually deal with kids, doesn't mean you got to go make kids. Let's be clear. What she's feeling is that you have the potential within you to be a decent life partner. And that's very attractive. I find that if I'm with good time girls, I treat them very differently than I treat girls who I'm serious about, who I care about, who I want to spend my time in a more sort of substantial manner. Women know instinctively this kind of stuff, and I think guys get it too. But what guys often don't get, especially the kind of guys that we're talking to, the kind of guys who have something going for them, is that you don't need everything going for you. What you need to do is work with what you've got. It's very tempting as a guy, as a person who's doing some kind of personal development, self-improvement, life improvement stuff, to look at what you're lacking. Well, you know what you're lacking, but here's what the illusion of transparency causes in us. The illusion of transparency, I remind people, is that feeling that everybody knows stuff that only you could possibly know. That, for example, you don't have a lot of money in the bank right now, or that you're anxious about going out socially, or that you just broke up with the girl and she left you and you're feeling rejected. They can't know that about you, but you go out in the world feeling vulnerable and anxious that they're going to find you out. The illusion of transparency is this thing that people say, I've got this weakness, this deficit, and everybody can see it. No, they can't. Nobody can see it. You want to go talk to a girl. Right? You go chat up a girl and you start talking to her and you start telling her charming things. The illusion of transparency is, I'm just having a conversation that I was coached to have. She doesn't know that. She doesn't know that these topics were being, you had this conversation in advance because you chat with us because we told you what roughly to say, gave you a framework. She doesn't know that you're not spontaneously the most interesting man in the world. That's the illusion of transparency, where you believe that she's got you figured out. And therefore, you're afraid to even go and approach. What you do instead, my friend, is you work with what you've got. If you're not a great conversationalist, but you're a decent joke teller, tell jokes. Tell jokes for a little while. If you do it for an hour, it may wear a little thin, but I got to tell you, for the first 10 minutes, you're going to be the most interesting guy in the room because you're working with what you've got.
If you're a virgin, it doesn't mean that she knows you're a virgin.
No. Actually, that's the one exception. She can tell. Virgins have a virgin smell.
I can tell too sometimes. I look around a room and I'm like, virgin.
You may never have approached a stranger in your life before, but when you walk into a bar or a room or a party and nobody really knows you, they don't know that about you either. They don't know it's the first time you've ever talked to someone stranger.
No matter what you're coming to the table with,
you
can create whatever it is you want to create.
Yep.
If you were a virgin, you can still be extremely sexual in your interaction. If you don't feel that you are a good conversationalist, you can prepare 3 different conversations. And let's say, we want you to work with what you have. If you're really good at telling jokes, tell jokes. That doesn't mean, though, that you shouldn't be doing your homework on the things that are attractive, that you should be spending time developing.
No, on the contrary. I think that's exactly it. Do work on these things and be willing to try them out. Nobody knows that you're trying out a different approach, a different technique, that you're talking to strangers for the first time. She can't know that. That's the illusion of transparency holding you up. You're going to go in believing, I think, this happens all too often. It's like, well, she's going to figure me out. She's going to figure out that I'm trying to hit on her. So, well, first of all, that's the right thing. If she doesn't figure out that you're trying to hit on her, you're doing something wrong eventually. She's going to figure out that you instructed me. No, when we're talking together, I'm just your buddy. I'm just hanging out in the bar with you. She's not going to feel that I'm feeding you these facts. That's all that stuff working on in your head.
There's this funny movie where he'll purposely drop a picture of a beautiful woman out of his wallet in front of a woman he's hitting on because he wants her to think that he always gets with beautiful women.
Sure.
He wants to create the perception that she is of his caliber.
Yeah.
You can create that perception just through your conversation, just through your approach, just being confident enough and being willing to speak to someone that you believe is more attractive than you.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, doesn't earn them any greater right, doesn't make them better than you. And now you know that your level of attractiveness isn't what makes them attracted to you. Just because you're unbelievably attracted to her based on a specific trait, it isn't what she's basing her level of attractiveness off from you.
Again, this is sort of very block and tackle.
Yeah.
David D'Angelo would say attraction isn't a choice. That's exactly right. Women feel what they're feeling because they feel something.
And if you can make them feel specific things, they will place you in the box of the men that make me feel and guys that I want to spend more time with.
That's right.
Your whole purpose when you go up to a woman is to make her feel.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because she's going to want to spend more time with you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you spend more time with a woman? She develops more of an attachment to you, usually, if you're basing it off of attraction, and eventually she's attached to you.
Yeah, the stuff that doesn't matter, and this is why it's worth repeating. Disabusing yourself of the belief that you have to have some intrinsic high social status, you have to know a ton of people, and even worse, when you do have something going for you, maybe it's your money, maybe it's your status, it's something that is intangible. I had spent a long time getting one of my clients to quit explaining to everybody, to explaining. He wasn't even having a conversation, he was explaining to the women that he met that he owned and ran a business. Here's one of the most needy and desperate things. Like me because of these things about me. Let me brag on for a while. Guys, that ain't attractive. No, there's no formulation of it that's attractive. You don't even need to mention it in passing. What you do is you give her a feeling. Let her be interested, and then you can talk. But don't sell her on you, because that's how you sell people, and people hate being sold.
How to Start a Kinky Relationship by James Amaro is the definitive guide to successful alternative romantic relationships. The book has been called 50 Shades of Grey for real people. Educational, informative, and irreverent, this book has something to offer anyone who is curious and sexually adventurous. Get your copy of How to Start a Kinky Relationship by James Amaro at Amazon.com or in select bookstores today.
Working with attractive men, sometimes you forget that your level of attractiveness is great to get someone's eye, but really horrible at getting someone to see you again, and really horrible to getting someone to come out with you. If you're not focusing on the attractive qualities that turn her on, not your physical attractiveness, you miss out. And a lot of times you're sitting there with your shoulders shrugging, being like, "Wait, but I'm cute. Why didn't this work?"
I would like every girl that I meet, that I get close to fall in love with me, even if it's only for a couple of hours. I mean, that does actually totally boost my ego, even if it's temporary, even if it's just but ideally it's a peak state. It's a strong, intense emotional response.
Okay, so we're telling men what's attractive to women and saying, get it out of your head. If you think that you're not attractive enough, if you're balding, if you're too short, if you don't know how to dress, if you don't have the amount of money or the career.
No, any of those things. You don't know how to dress, you're balding, you don't know how to handle yourself socially. All of those things aren't limiting factors, but if you don't do something to compensate for them, and now I've got buddies, not clients, who are self-handicapping them in the worst possible way, whether it's their sense of style or the lack thereof, or their indifference to their appearance, I mean sheer indifference to their appearance, whether it's expecting because they think so much of themselves. Don't you know I'm a very serious musician in this town? That they expect the girl to pry out of him his backstory and whatever. That's self-handicapping. I mean, if you have some basic social sort of charms and some tools, and you don't dress in such a way that makes people say, well, did you just fall off of the boat? Then a lot of things will work in your favor. So, in other words, these things don't matter except when they matter. So you want to make them not matter. That's the point. What you're really trying to do, I mean, if we sort of say this in a sales way, is quit giving her reasons to say no and then use the assets you have to attract her. Make it so that you're not turning her off. Don't make your clothes unattractive. Don't make your disposition unattractive. Don't make your failure to make eye contact unattractive.
Let's just say your face isn't as symmetrical as it could be. It doesn't mean that you should dress in sweats. You're putting on the best face. So you're not giving someone a reason to say no to you.
Don't let them prejudge you. Yes. Better to read neutral. And of course, if you have a little bit of a chutzpah, you might wear something that's kind of cool and peacocky. You might wear some flashy jewelry. You might have a nice necklace. You might just wear a really clean-lined jacket.
If you're a little overweight, don't wear a shirt that shows your belly button. It's, you dress appropriately.
No, not unless it's a see-through wife beater and where you own it. Like, if you're going to own it, please don't ever do that in front of me.
Why'd you cut the nipples out of you?
You're right.
No. No, but if you're broke, don't go around telling people that you're fucking broke.
Yes. If you're overweight, and this really bothers me, just you present yourself in a way that doesn't look like you're a video gamer in the basement. This is very straightforward. At that point, it's a very simple matter of neatness.
And if you're balding, work with it. Shave your head.
Right. Shave your head. There's plenty of hairstyles. You can keep it neatly cropped. Denial, okay, is going to be the worst handicap that you get. So if you are uncomfortable with the fact that you're aging and you like to date half your age, your anxiety will turn her off and be unattractive to her. If you're worried about the fact that you got a nice crown of shine on the top of your head and you won't style it appropriately, your insecurity is just waiting for her to comment on it. And then she's going to say something and you are going to overreact because you don't own it. That's unattractive. But it's not the baldness, man. It's the fact that you're insecure about it that is going to make her turned off.
Completely because you think it matters. If you walked into a situation, first, you probably aren't putting yourself, if you do have these handicaps, into a situation where you will talk to a beautiful woman that you think is beautiful.
No, so you've been kicked in by one of us and we make you do it.
And so finally we kick you in, you go talk to her, and all of a sudden you're talking to her like you don't think you deserve to talk to her.
Yeah,
how do you,
weird?
What happens when someone that's asking for change, they don't think they deserve to talk to you or something, they approach you, you know they're up to something.
Yeah.
You know they're going to ask you for something that they don't deserve, that they're going to take from you. You need to go into a situation like that, like you're bringing something to the interaction. You're bringing something. They should be excited that you've decided to come talk to them.
Yeah, dude, I think that's actually just really creepy. The experience of having someone who almost worships you or thinks that you're out of their league, that sort of elevation, putting on a pedestal that can happen. I've had people who know me by reputation talk to me in this sort of hero worshipy kind of manner. I gotta say, it's weird. It makes me genuinely uncomfortable. And it's because when you're talking to somebody who you don't particularly know well, you want to get to know each other, I think. You want to talk to them as a peer, or maybe you just have some sort of shared interest, or you're getting to know them. And if they say, yeah, you know this thing that you wrote about this one, or you said about this, I feel like I'm being idolized a little bit. And I actually don't think that you're talking to me as a person. I kind of think that you're talking to me as a projection of things you believe. So now beautiful girls get this all the time. You're not talking to me as a person, as a girl, as a woman standing in front of you. You're talking to my outfit. You're talking to my looks. You're talking to the fact that I've been on a diet for 2 weeks and I look really good tonight, but I feel real good about myself. And when you go in and sort of supplicate and sort of put yourself below me, I feel that, I pick up on that. And now you're kind of a creepy guy to be around. Unless I want you to drive me home at the end of the night safely without touching me, I'm not interested in talking to you anymore.
A little bit of a hint, she probably doesn't think she looks that good.
Yeah, fortunately.
And she's looking and she's waiting for validation because she has the same holdups as you, because she knows all you care about is physical attractiveness, which is why a lot of times they say if you see two girls together, one's prettier than the other, and you want to get her attention, you talk to her friend that's next to her, because all of a sudden she's wondering why she's not getting the attention. She craves it madly.
What a crazy, weird glitch this is. Again, use this as a fact, keep it in your archive, exploit it if you must. But it's very simple. Girls get prettier and then they get more insecure. Weird that it would work this way. I mean, a girl who doesn't really expect much of the world, she doesn't care. She's not worried about how people perceive her because she's kind of given up. But no, when a girl gets pretty, she knows what she can get. She's insecure because she thinks that guys are out of her league and they think they just want the one thing. And that creates this weird sort of state. I'm just glad I'm not a pretty girl.
And then if you get a girl that's super professional and not as attractive, she starts doubting all the guys that are interested in her. And she wonders why because she has years of no attention.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, guys, before you approach a woman, put yourself in her shoes. Or, because you don't understand her shoes.
Right.
Never mind. I take that back.
Yeah.
Just looks don't matter. As long as you've done your best to minimize the straight up no.
No, you'd mentioned that people who are equitably matched in attractiveness tend to make the better long-term partners. And it's sort of the wonderful counterexample from Hollywood is that Angelina Jolie got with that crazy old man before Brad Pitt. What's his name? I forget his name.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Thank you. She got with Billy Bob Thornton. And Lyle Lovett got with Julia Roberts when she was still in her prime, in her 20s, I think. So that didn't last forever, but they got together.
And also, who do you think was having sex with them in high school? You know, or after that, like they at some point were just girls.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had their drunken nights. So just because she's a movie star now and beautiful doesn't mean she was always like that.
These relationships did end. They didn't end in death. So they did come to an end. But let's be clear, these guys had managed to seal the deal. And I think that in different circumstances, they could have lasted. The difference in attractiveness thing becomes an issue because without much effort, people of similar attractiveness will attract each other because each one of them feels the following. I haven't settled for someone who's way below, and I'm not anxious about the person cheating on me. That's where the stable equilibrium, this is game theory. And it's like a 7 will get with a 6 or a 7 or an 8 comfortably, but what they don't want, a 7 doesn't want a 2, and a 7 can't sustain a 10. So a 7 stabilizes with a 7, an 8 stabilizes with an 8, and so on. It's kind of game theory.
Do you think that they also settle with people of similar social status or financial?
Well, the hypergamy means that usually the women are going up, trying to get up a little bit in status, right? So a woman who finds that a guy can provide well for her is going to be more attracted to that guy in general, all other things being equal. That's what the hypergamy is going to give. But there's plenty of other cases where very long-term relationships happen where she is a type of a professional. She's in law or she's in politics. She makes more money than him, and they're very happy and they're very equal in that sense.
Usually the more attractive person, you'll notice this, guys, if you do get that hot babe, she has a lot more opportunity. And unless you have a good hold on your levels of jealousy and insecurity, and don't really care if she strays every now and then, you're up for a really hard time.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things if you ever want to set yourself up for a challenge. Go date a stripper or a bottle girl or a model, someone who's professionally pretty, and just deal with the inevitable, oh, you didn't come over. What are you doing? You're going out with your coworkers. Oh, you're going to cheat on me. I mean, just deal with that self-talk, that little insecurity that says, well, she has a lot of opportunity. Whereas when you're with a girl who comes straight home after work and she's very pretty, but she doesn't get that much attention on the train or at work or whatever, well, you probably have less to fear.
When you're ready to settle down, if you're ever ready to settle down, people tend to settle down with partners of similar levels of attractiveness. Now's a really good time to up your game and become more attractive. And that's working with what you have, getting on a fitness plan, working on your career, learning how to converse a little bit better, and having those experiences with women that you now or previously thought before this episode were at a higher caliber than you.
Yeah.
To get used to it and to realize that whatever bar you set is the bar that you can achieve.
Yeah.
That will help you later on in life as well, because those personality traits, that ability to handle yourself in specific conversations will make you more attractive, will help your overall career. And all of a sudden, your bar is raised higher because you just lost some of your insecurities and worked on yourself.
Yeah, and you're going to attract really insanely hot, physically hot. You're going to attract really hot girls into your life.
You have been listening to the Suave Lover podcast. Visit suavelover.com to become the kind of man that women crave.